How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Um, I mean this. I hope you can take this in the spirit which I'm asking it. But when you pitched this idea for the movie, was there a part of you that was surprised when it got greenlit?
Yes. Uh, so, the way that I view the Hollywood career and the game is if you're lucky enough and you fight hard enough and you get a seat at the table, you should keep kicking and thrashing and trying. And so, I've directed an episode of New Girl. I directed some commercials. I've self-financed and produced movies where I was with the director a lot. So the idea of getting an indie feature as a director wasn't out of the question for the last few years. The question was what would I like to do? And so obviously I could have done like a romantic comedy that was lighthearted but indie and looked good and felt good. So it was connecting like drinking buddies to New Girl. And there were other kind of projects I had been kind of thinking about. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to spend all this time, I want the dream movie for me. And the dream tone for me was Jacob's Ladder mixed with Bottle Rocket. And when I pitched that, they said, what does that look like? And my real answer was, I don't know.
So for people who are listening to this who aren't familiar with either of those movies, can you give me like the TV guide version of that's an old
Yes,
reference.
of
TV guide
course.
version of like Jacob's Ladder. Yeah,
Yes.
give me the TV guide version of Jacob's Ladder meets what was it? Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson.
Bottle Rocket, yes. I was, yeah. So Jacob's Ladder is about a guy who gets home from Vietnam and starts seeing things like demons. It's a psychological thriller, and he's being hunted. And it's these demons are very scary and everywhere. And he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And he's meeting with other people he served with, and they're talking about it might be the drugs that were put over the chemicals that were put over them, and it might be this, and it could be this. And he's building, and this horror and this terror is building, and you don't know what is happening, and you don't know what is real. And the end of the movie, well, I don't want to spoil it,
I think you can
but it's
spoil it.
a,
It came out a long time ago.
yeah, that's true. So if I spoil it and you're mad, I
Hold on,
apologize.
let's give everybody a second. He's about to spoil it. You can turn off the podcast for like you can skip ahead 5 seconds or like turn down the radio for 5 seconds.
That's correct. Okay, so here's what
Okay,
happens.
go ahead.
So the end of the movie is revealed that there's a helicopter shot, and you realize, oh, he was wounded and he might be dying in Vietnam, and all of this might have been in his head.
Yeah.
And the movie ends and you go, I think it was all in his head, or I don't really know. And you're putting a lot of questions together in the credits roll. And you're left with a lot of questions about what did I just watch? But the ride was really fun.
Okay.
And Bottle Rocket is an indie comedy about a guy who believes himself to be greater than he is and wants to be extraordinary, but he's very below ordinary. And he has these huge aspirations about being in a gang and being in a group and taking over. And it doesn't work out for him. But his group is really funny. His team is really great. And it's got that great early 2000s indie spirit of like, it's just an indie killer with a great soundtrack. And it feels right. And the bits are great. And I wanted to see what would happen if those two things became one movie. And that was my kind of mission statement for Self Reliance.
And they said, yeah, they said, good, sure.
They said if you can keep it at a certain price point, we're willing to give it a chance. And Tom, we kept it at the price point.
So, who was it? I think Seth Rogen said that to me one time. He was like, the reason I can't do Seth Rogen, but like the reason I've had this career for so long is that my movies have gone very well and I've made them very cheaply.
Yes. So I'm a big believer in that. I self-financed some movies in the past. Win It All, Digging for Fire, Ride the Eagle. And what I really learned with those movies is, and it's a lot of things that filmmakers don't talk about, but the business of making movies. And that is, if I made Self Reliance for 25 to 40 million dollars and we put 25 into marketing, well, then this movie is a big miss. But we made the movie for 5, and Hulu came in after South by Southwest way above that to purchase it. So we have already won.
Oh, come on.
And now it's just a matter of getting it out to people and celebrating it. What happened? Did we break up?
No, I said, come on. That's beautiful. I was just so happy to hear it. I mean, like, come on. That's so
Oh, yeah,
good.
yeah.
You're already ahead. You're
Yes,
already,
but those price points really matter. And so when I was pitching this, and Andy was interested, and he also produced it. So they had myself and Andy in it, and then Anna Kendrick had read the script and said she might do it. I think they said, with you three, with this movie, if you can nail it, we'll be very happy at this $5 million price point.
I want to point out that the reason I think Jake and I are talking about this movie and the financing around it and the green lighting around it is because you don't see weird. And let me just be clear. If I didn't like it, I'd probably just say stuff like, well, congrats, man. I really liked this movie. I thought it was so funny, but you just don't see, you see weird YouTube videos or you see weird TikToks. You might even see a weird series like I Think You Should Leave, which Biff Whiff, who's in this, is also in. You don't see weird, funny movies. Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But fun indies like Slacker from back in the day
Yeah.
were the kind of movies that got me interested in making movies. And this idea of little indies where you go, oh, this is really cool. This is just, it seems like a group of friends and they're making, I mean, Clerks.
Yeah.
Clerks was a really weird little movie and it just happened to catch fire. Well, now we're in a world where we have so much different content that movies, they want to make Marvel money or they want to make, Scorsese money or Napoleon money.
Yeah.
They want to make these huge movies, but I also still think, and economically we've proved, there still really is a market for the under 10 or under 5 that exists and people like them.
But outside of the market wise, what is a big question? Do we lose something when we lose those movies? I mean, I read an article the other day that was like, there was a time where you could watch The English Patient and then the following week watch some small comedy. And the same people in the theater for The English Patient or the same people in the theater for Michael Keaton Batman are the same people in the theater for Clerks. Like, do we lose something as like, and this is a public radio show, so whatever. Do we lose something as a society when we're all not watching these kind of movies anymore?
Well, I don't know, but I do know that everything has fragmented to the point, but the catch is, and what I'm proud of this is those movies are still existing. You might just have to go find them.
Right.
So Rob Reiner did an episode of New Girl, and it was still when we were doing pretty good numbers for 2012 television.
Yeah.
And the numbers compared to Rob Reiner's career
on All in the Family,
of All in the Family were disgusting. And he told a story to myself and Zoe and the crew one day that changed me. And he said, when that show was hot, we had so many people listening that you would know, he would say, like, let's say at like the 13-minute mark of the episode, there's a great joke. The kind of joke that like was the best laugh of the episode. When we taped it, it was the biggest laugh in the room. And he would go, you could almost hear America laugh together at that moment because everybody was watching. And I thought, that's so cool and so not my experience with entertainment. Entertainment has gotten so individualized so that rather than that, you just meet people on the streets or get DMs on Instagram where they go, hey, this movie you made, Safety Not Guaranteed, I just watched it.
Yeah.
And it really meant a lot to me. And you go like, great. But we don't all watch together, but people do see things.
Yeah. I like your point there because I think most people I talk to make the point of like, and it's never going to happen again. But I like your point that like it's out there. You just have to find them, but they're there. They're still being made.
But it's also different now, like, because I went through a whole period where I was battling if this is like the end of this thing that I love. And that
like
is
filmmaking?
Filmmaking, TV, like, with each situation with, these networks now canceling stuff based off tax breaks, right? Them making a show and burying it to save money on their accounts. And they are multi-million-dollar companies. There's a part of that feels like the death of something that I really love, and that is entertainment and movies and TV. And the counter to that is we started this podcast, the We're Here to Help, really for fun. It was my buddy Gareth who does a show called The Dollop. He's been doing it for 10 years. We've been friends forever. And he's like, I think you're going to like this. And I keep being like, I don't want to do a podcast. And we started doing it. And within a month, we've had insane numbers. And the more people are listening to this than watching certain projects I've
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this world? And so I'm like, oh, so it's now about a lot of projects and reaching people in different ways and reaching pockets as opposed to just trying to land that one big fish. And there is something really exciting about that.
I got a question about the where part of the movie came from. So
Yes.
one of the things in the movie is that the your character Tommy, he can't be alone, because if he's alone he'll be killed. That's how the people
Yes.
in the game will
That's
get
the
him.
loophole.
The producer of this segment, Mitch, and I came at it from completely different angles. He was like, maybe it's inspired by the idea that during the pandemic, we were with our families all the time. And, we could not get away from our families. And I came at it like, oh, during the pandemic, we were so alone, so disconnected from everybody. Maybe that had something to do with where this came from. Are either of us on the right track there?
The original idea for this movie was pitched to Netflix in 2017.
God damn it.
But it then went away. I wanted it to be a limited series and I wanted it to be a multi-season show. And then during the pandemic, the reason that I wrote it and tried to get it made then was it felt like the pandemic. And what it felt like to me was that I personally missed everybody. It was the first time in my life I realized I miss a busboy in my favorite restaurant that I do a bit with. I miss sitting at a table and the people next to me are loud and annoying. I miss seeing people on sidewalks. And I was like, man, I was with my family the whole time, but I thought I would kind of do anything to be in a crowded elevator. And so I thought, this show I wanted to do before is feeling like the pandemic. And the idea that the killers are very serious to one person and ridiculous to the next felt like the virus, where some people thought this thing is going to kill us all. And the person next door said, yeah, right, dude, stop believing the media. And I was like, we're all turned around with our idea of truth and we're alone and we're isolated. And I said, oh, this is really lining up.
Tommy's character sits down in front of his family and says, like, this is easy.
Yes.
All I have to do is spend every waking minute with you and I win $1 million. And they go, it's not spoiling anything, I don't think, right?
No, it's fine.
They go, you're out of your mind. Like, this is not right. You're making all this up. There's meaning there to me.
Yes. But there's also for me, and it's a dark comedy, but it is a comedy. And that is, I do have addicts in my family and friends who I've loved. And when you watch somebody trying to convince you that they don't have a problem and things are fine, there is something really funny about it while it's really sad.
Yeah.
And their reasoning from the outside is you go like, well, no, my friend, that's not real life. And they're like, well, you're not, hold on. But if you just give me until Wednesday, and if you just do this and you go, huh, and my kind of comedic engine is, what if they were right? And what if everything they're saying, while the group of people who were so sure of themselves that this goofball is coming up with excuses and they don't buy it for a second.
And nor should they really, nor should they.
Yeah. But when the family hears Andy Samberg pulled up in a limousine and these two guys from potentially Greenland picked you, but nobody gets to see it and these ninjas are filming it, their thought is the same way as an addict would say, like, I am going to get sober, but it's going to be next Friday, the 9th. And you go, well, why not today? And they go, well, because tomorrow is the dragon celebration. And you go, what are you talking about? You're lying to me. And I thought, what if the character was telling the truth? And the stakes weren't, I need to get sober. The stakes were, I hear you.
Yeah.
They're going to kill me. And to the family, this is your most desperate attempt for attention. And for me, comedically, that felt like a big enough engine that I'm like, because I can personally see it from both sides. It was very easy for me to talk to the actors in the family. And when like Mary Holland or Emily Hampshire, both like these killers would go like, what is the tone of this? I would go, the tone is your brother's full of shit. Your brother has always made this stuff up. He's a liar. He wants attention. He's lonely. It's all about him. And you're tired of it. He called a family meeting on a Saturday because he's bored and lonely and he wants you guys to have sleepover parties with him, but he doesn't do the same for you. And so then my tone coming in before we started the scene was, I'm in the most intense drama and I'm going to get killed. And I know they're going to believe me because I'm right. And so I thought like, oh, if every scene had that, if both sides thought they were right, and if I directed it like both sides were right, I was like, well, that feels fun to me. So you can watch the movie like he's an idiot and it's all in his head, or you could watch it like he's totally right.
You were talking to me about like, oh, this is the thing that I wanted to get into when I was a kid. It's the death of entertainment. I always wanted to make films. I always wanted to be part of this thing. But I know you as an actor. When did when did you want to act? Did you always want to act?
So when I was a little kid, I grew up outside of Chicago, and the second city,
Skokie?
Evanston.
Oh, I know. I only know about Skokie. I have a friend of mine from Skokie.
My mother, where she lives now, borders the great Skokie.
Oh, wow.
So you're close. But Chicago, the second city is king in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the second city, obviously it's big in Toronto too, and in Detroit, but it breeds a certain type of actor, and that is a comedic actor, a character actor, somebody who plays it very real, someone whose tone is very grounded, but somebody who can generate a lot of laughs. And when I was growing up, when I was born, Belushi was still alive, and he was a big part of my family. Like it was like Belushi was king, and then Bill Murray, and Bill Murray grew up in a town 10 minutes from where I grew up, and the Murray family and the Murray brothers were legendary when I grew up. And so this idea of that type of character actor was the goal. And so then my pursuit of how to get there was to write parts for myself so that I could be that kind of actor. And so it was always one and the same thing, if that makes sense.
It does, but can you reiterate I've never heard anyone put it like that. Like reiterate to me again that type of Second City comedian, the type of Bill Murray, kind of every Manny.
Yeah, so it's some actors move to Los Angeles, like a Brad Pitt, because they are so good looking. And everywhere they go, from the time they were 9, people go like, that is the best looking person I've ever. Margot Robbie probably had it. Ryan Gosling has it.
I had a really famous actor in here one time, and I said about them afterwards. I'm not going to say who it was, but afterwards I said to someone, if that guy had been a plow driver, he would have been on the cover of Plow Drivers Monthly,
right.
and would have got an agent, a UTA.
100% right. Well, there's stories about like Ashton Kutcher was like in a mall, and someone's like, will you please take this money? Right? Because whatever that thing, and I've worked with them where you're around certain people and you just go male and female. You are a greater physical specimen than the majority of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then there's like the talent, and the talent is like your John Malkoviches, right? That like they're just like actors.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis
Daniel Day-Lewis. And what we love about them as cultures is like they are after some deeper truth. And you don't want to think of them as like scrolling through Instagram because they live in like a little hut and they go so deep into character. And when they present, they are a mirror to society and they drip with talent. And they could go from Hamlet in the Park to SNL that evening and we cheer for them. Right?
Yeah.
And so they're great too. But I knew at a very young age, I'm very dyslexic.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew from a young age, with my face, I'm not the first type. And with my brain, I'm not the second type. But I can make everybody in the classroom laugh, and I get great joy from that. And so in terms of where I'm going to live, when I started seeing stand-ups, I never thought that's me. I don't want to be on a microphone in front of a stage alone. But then when you see a certain type, and that is, he looks like your uncle or your aunt, or like, like Joan Cusack is a perfect Chicago actress.
Yeah.
where you're like, she's just so funny and good. Catherine O'Hara is a perfect second city actor,
Yeah.
where you're like, I could see you in my family.
Yeah.
And I would like you in my family. And it doesn't feel odd to see you in screen because I know you.
Yeah.
You are part of me.
Yeah.
But the way you're riffing with John Candy, the two of you guys together, is bringing such joy. But you guys are kind of me. And then Brad Pitt walks by and you go, that's not me, but I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
And then an act, Sir Ben Kingsley comes in and you go like,
Well done. Well done.
throw the roses at him,
Yeah.
stare at the beauty.
Uh-huh.
And then the character actor is kind of the bread, just like you keep it going.
So when you got New Girl, so for people who don't
Yeah.
know, you were on that show, New Girl, which I love, by the way. I love that show, and
Thanks.
it's a
It's a
real,
really fun one.
real comfort watch for me, and and a
Yes.
good big pandemic watch for me, and I
Fun.
have a great time. It was very, it did the thing it needed to do,
Yeah.
for me, which was, during the dark months, really made me laugh a lot. But that must have been a great role for you because that was kind of your role on that. You were kind of just a bit of a. I've heard people describe it as like. You kind of stand in for the audience a little bit, and you can make people laugh.
That's interesting. That's a perfect example of what I love about TV. When I booked that job,
Yeah.
my role was as a guy who just quit law school, and Liz Meriwether wrote it as the smartest guy in the room, but too insecure to say it. And when I got the job, I've never been described as those two things. So a lot of my role in the first few episodes, I used to say like every one of my sentences, my lines ends in a question mark. Because it would be like, Schmidt has a monologue. And I would go, is that really how you feel? Then he would have a punchline. Then Jess would enter, Zoe's character, and she would have a chunk like, here's what happened at school today. And I would go, and then what'd you do? And then she would have an answer. And then and I was like, all I'm doing is feeding, but I'm not giving anything.
You're an exposition machine.
I'm a setup exposition machine.
Right.
They even did the exposition. And then I just started making facial expressions to react. And then slowly, Liz and the writers started writing for me, and they thought, Jake isn't a quiet lawyer who's really insecure and smart. He's a different thing. He's weird. So they started writing the weird. And then by season 2 or later in season 1, we started finding the character, and that you do not get in a movie. That's the gift of TV. And then once we found it, we had 120 episodes to play with it.
Oh, what a gift that must have been for you that they didn't
Ugh.
say to you, "Oh, can you just be that guy we wanted you to be?"
So that is, and I didn't know it then, but I've known it now. It's what I love about Liz Meriwether and what I love about acting or certain type of acting. And now I know before I take the meetings, I go in and I'll say like, if you have a vision in your head, I don't think an actor's job is just to satisfy that vision. Some actors do. I think the job of an actor is to partner with you and turn this thing into something really special together. And I didn't realize how great Liz was at that. I just thought that's what it was. Because all of a sudden you would experiment and she would give you something new. And if it worked, that would be the direction you went in. But that job was so much improv, so much together that we really built the show kind of on the fly.
I talked to Emily Hampshire after Schitt's Creek ended, and she talked to me. And I've had this conversation with a few people, but Emily talked to me a lot. Emily Hampshire, who I should say is part of Jake's show,
And so good at it.
movie Self Reliance, incredible Canadian actor. She told me, she was like, after Schitt's ended, she was like, I wasn't sure what my, I thought that might have been it for me. Did you get any of that after New Girl?
I actually didn't. I thought I didn't start working until very late in my career.
Yeah.
I was 28 years old before I got like a commercial, and New Girl happened. I think I was 31 years old.
Did you have like day jobs before that?
Always. I mean, I've had every single day job you could imagine. I was bad at it.
Right.
Truly. And, some actors say that where they're like, I didn't have a plan B. And then you talk to them and you're like, you had a plan B. You had a lot of plan Bs. Like, I've talked to you.
You have
like,
a bachelor's of chemistry. You have a...
Yeah. And they're like, I know, but I didn't love it. It's like, love is different. But that's a plan B. Like, that is a real plan B.
Yeah, right.
I was very bad at every day job. I've been, people are like, I've never been fired once. I've been fired so many times I can't count. I've been fired so many times that I wouldn't get offended when they were fired. I would understand.
Fired, fired.
The countless times I've had once I was catering in the middle of a bar mitzvah, the guy said, "Give me your bow tie," and I
No
said
way.
like, "Yes," and
He
I go
was
like, "Let me,"
he
I
was
go,
willing to be short-staffed on a
he was
job
short staffed
rather than
because
work with you.
Tom, he was shorter staffed with me. I was minus three workers. He goes, "This is a true story," but I was at a bar mitzvah. I had two in a day, and I thought, like, great, this will cover me for rent wise. I'm kind of fine. And there were these two DJs, and the DJs were just a really funny combo. Like they had their whole shtick, and it was kind of hip hop, but also like really being respectful to like the little bar mitzvah girl's family. So it'd be a lot of like, "Yo, Nana, get up on that floor,
Right.
girl."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
like an 80-year-old woman would dance, but they were keeping the tone of like, this is a little bit hip hoppy. And it was just perfect. They were so good at it. The kids were so funny. The little 13-year-olds with braces were like perfectly like, street bebopping.
Yeah.
And a lot of the parents were laughing and having fun. And I started laughing and having fun. And I would be talking to some like random uncle and we would be like dying laughing. And my boss came up to me and said, like, "Stop laughing with the guests and start serving." And I would go, "I hear you." And then at one point he saw me buckled over, bending over laughing. And he walked up to me and literally said, "Give me your bow tie right now." And I said, "I'm not going to do that. I'm going to finish." He said, "I'm not asking." And I took off the bow tie and I walked out and I had to call my girlfriend, now wife, and went like, "Happened again, honey. I'm out of work." This one didn't work out, dear, but we got a good one cooking. We got a good one cooking. The next one's right around the horizon.
So you get does that lead you to the when New Girl ends? You're like, all right, well, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, so when New Girl, and so I believe in hard work. So I believe in the grind, and I believe in you've got to outwork everybody. So if you don't care about what you're doing, so I don't care about catering. I never cared, but I always was going home and writing. I was always on stages. I was always working on the thing. So when New Girl started, the first thing I did was sell a TV show as a writer to 20th because I'm like, now I know these people. So now the executives kind of have to buy it from me. So I was like, so then I did that for 2 years, and then I started a company at 20th Century so I could sit on the same side of the table as them when writers came in, so I could kind of study them a little bit. In the summers in between that show, I did a few indies. One was Drinking Buddies, one was the pretty one. I did Safety Not Guaranteed, and then I started doing some studio ones like 21 Jump Street. I did Jurassic World and Let's Be Cops. So I was filling the summer up with acting jobs. August till April, I was on New Girl, and during the August until April, I was constantly writing, making self-financed indies when another one didn't come my way, and creating the production company. So my thought was, when it goes away, I might never be at the level I am now, but you've let me into the castle. It's going to be hard to get me out. I've always viewed it like if they let you in, you got to be a rat and sneak around and don't let them kick you out.
I don't talk to many actors who have such a sense of like the business, the reality of the business. I'm not saying that like or I talk to actors who only have a sense of that. Like
Yes.
they're really they're
Yes,
I
they're
call them
good at it.
they're savvy. They're like
Yes,
I had an actor a
that's
little while
right.
ago talk to me about like it's being an actor these days is more like being the head of a tech company, man. You're just trying to
Amazing.
establish and I'm just like sure, and I'm nodding along going, yeah, great. I haven't met many people before like you who make art that they want to make that feels authentic to them and weird and great, and also seems to have a real sense of the realities of the business that you're in.
Well, thanks. So I was raised by a single mother, and my mother was a stained glass artist and opened junk shops and does beautiful work, like spectacular stuff. But she's moody. And so there would be like months where she wouldn't want to go into the shop. And I would go like, "Hey, Ma, are we going to go into the shop today?" And she'd go, "No." And I'd go, "It's going to make it really hard for people to buy stuff if the door's locked."
Yeah, right.
But for her, the process is really all that matters. And if she made a window that was beautiful, or if we found an old dresser and we stripped it, restained it, put handles, and it was great, I would be like, we did it. She would go, we're not selling this one. And I'm like, well, the whole idea is to sell it, not
Yeah,
just
right,
like
right.
have another
Yeah,
dresser.
right, right.
In her shop, she used to get really mad at me if I negotiated. So like, let's say she had like something that was worth $80 and then like junk, like an old cat. She bought like trinkets. Cats were worth $2 a pop. She wanted 15. So if somebody goes, I'll give you 80 for the dresser, but throw in one of those cats. Well, we got 80 from a dresser we found in an alley. So the only thing we put into it was our time. This is a good deal. My mom would get furious at me because the cat was worth $15. Now, mix that with my dad when I got to know him, which was as an adult, was a born salesman and owned a car dealership on the south side of Chicago and turned a little Chevy dealership into a really nice business, but knows nothing of cars. Refers to cars as units.
Real
Is
business.
not a car guy. It's
Ruthless
only
business, dude.
yeah, well, it's not even ruthless. It's just an understanding of sales and the beauty of sales. And a good sell does not mean you rip them off. It means you get rid of something at a price and they're happy too.
Okay.
And so if you could sell units, who cares what the unit is? But the art is the sale, it's not the product. And when he and I got close, I was my mother's son. And that's why I didn't start working until my late 20s. He was the one. I lived with him at 26 when my career had bottomed out. And we would start having business talks. And he's like, you're waiting for some agent or manager to find you and run your business so that you could just go do a monologue and somebody will give you gold. He's like, I promise you, if you do that, they're going to rob you of all that gold. And he's like, you're the business. And so it was the mixing of those two, which was kind of the beginning of my Hollywood kind of game.
I mean, what a great story. What a great
Thanks,
story.
Tom.
What a great story.
Thanks, man. That's the idea, man. We're telling these stories. We're goddamn storytellers by a fire.
I loved this. I loved this movie. I really want everyone to watch it. I want everyone to watch it so that you can make more of them. Not even more of the story, but just more of them. Thanks so much for making the time.
Yeah, what a pleasure, man. I appreciate you.